Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let's see, I'll start with, my name is Travis Depew. I'm the resident product evangelist at xMatters. So I do a lot of webinars and blog posts like, webinars like you see here. But I also build out integrations and I get to play with all the fun toys that our engineering teams build. So if you're not familiar, I'm just gonna give a little quick intro to Flow Designer. Okay, so so you may, if you're familiar with xMatters, you may be pretty familiar with our, of course, our on-call scheduling and device notification capabilities. But with Flow Designer, it really adds an extra dimension of interaction with all the different tools that you have to deal with, especially when it comes to incident response. What we're looking at here is a Datadog flow that I've enriched or I've added to. So everything starts with a trigger. The triggers are the little circle objects, and then it flows through, decides that this is an actual alert. We're going to enrich the notification with information from GitHub and Circle CI. Maybe this is your code commit and build information. We'll post a message into Teams, and then we'll of course notify the current on-call group. So then the resulting email or notification really has the original information from Datadog, as well as some enriched information, from the different tools. That now at incident time, then I can make a decision really quickly with all this information on what to do next. And of course, xMatters, we can do incident response. So that's where these responses come in. So I've got a handful of responses here to do sort of different things. Selecting one of these responses will then trigger the appropriate flow in the canvas. Yes, Bonnie, I know, I'm getting to that part. So we can see here on the declare sev1 that we're going to create a JIRA issue and an xMatters incident. Then we'll post into a comment into the JIRA incident, throw into Slack as well as Teams, because a lot of times, maybe you have both in, in the corporate environment. And then we'll notify out to say, hey, we've got a sev1 issue. So there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different tools that we interact with out of box, and we of course have the capability to build some custom steps. So anyways, with that out of the way, I was struck one day harassing a friend of mine, and realized that I could create CatFacts in xMatters. And if you're not familiar with CatFacts, it's exactly what it sounds like. Originally, it was kind of a joke, I think on Reddit, to a friend where they were just texting back and forth and signed them up for CatFacts. It's a pretty hilarious piece. If you go look at, there's a write-up actually about it. It's kind of an icon of history. So anyway, so since we have notification capabilities and we have methods to call APIs, Cat, this is my desk too, okay? Since we have notification capabilities, I realized that we could really do this in xMatters. So after some tinkering and some working, this is one of a couple of different flows that I've created. We'll start with a new user process. Really, Kat? No, that's okay. You don't have to do it. That's it. Yeah, good. Okay, go over here. Come on. So this is the new user sign-up process. So, again, we're going to start with a trigger. In this case, is email parsing trigger. So it generates a email address that we can use to initiate this flow. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to modify it a little bit because it's interesting. Generally, the way things work is that we can use the first part, the local part, username part of the email address to maybe target a group or something. I'm just going to do welcome just because that's a good one. And then CatFacts, I've edited the name here. Let me just go back to that. So I've edited the name. It generates this ID so that it's unique to the system. Mandalore is my xMatters instance, which I had for the past 7 years, by the way. And then once I send an email to this email address, it will kick off this flow. And then my subject, I'm going to put in I'm going to say hello, and that's it. That's all I got to do. So once I fire that off, this is going to kick off the email process. So we're going to parse out the subject. This is a custom step that I wrote a lot of times with the email parsing, you're going to have to have some way to, some way to pull the relevant details out of the email. And that's where this custom step comes in. Sorry, I need, hopefully you guys don't have this many steps in here. I do this a lot. I don't know if you can tell. Of course, I can't find it. Great. I forget. We're going to skip that one. I don't remember what it's called. Anyways, so this will take the details of the email and then spit out device address, device type, device name, and username. So then, because then what it does is it will then create a new user. So if we didn't find an email address, then we pull out a CatFact and we send them a notification saying, hey, you didn't do this right. But in general, I think that email just worked. So we can see, yes, it did. Awesome. So here's my welcome email with a nice little cat. And of course, my first CatFact. So that's awesome. So anyways, so what happens is that everything worked out. So we try to get a person. This is using a step, again, that I generated for retrieving a person in xMatters. If we didn't find one, so if we did find one, then we're good. But if we didn't find one, that means we got a 404 in the response code. Then we're going to create a person. We'll create a device. We will get a new CatFact and get a new image, and then generate the email. So let's take this one. Create xMatters. Create a person. So I'll use this one for as an example for a custom step. So the custom step dialog is pretty straightforward. We get some general information about the step. We can set up versioning, which can be pretty handy. I can add a new version if I need to ever deploy this out to the wider environment. The endpoint type is pretty critical here. This is what allows me to make the API call outside. The endpoint label is just the name of the label that I use in the script. I'll get to that in a minute. I know we don't want to rename, that's fine. Okay, fine. Then I set up the list of inputs. In this case, since we're creating a person, we have to retrieve all the different inputs that we might need for the particular user. Each one will have a name that we'll use in the script. Required means that I actually have to populate a value in there. Otherwise, it will fail the flow. Some helpful text about what's happening. I can set a default value and a minimum multi-line. Multi-line just gives you a little more room in the step dialog. Then I set up the outputs. In this case, I just have a status code. I have the target name, and then this is the unique UUID of the user that just got created. Step off the coffee, cat. So then when we actually are ready to make the API calls, we can write up the script, pull out the name of the endpoint that we saw earlier. And then in this case, we're calling the people API call. So this is the path that we're going to use, and then we're going to use a post. Then we start generating the payload to send over to xMatters containing the username. And then we fire off the API call with this command. So, sorry, with this one, API request.write. And then based on the response code, I will then populate the output values. So pretty helpful. So then what it looks like on here. So this is where I map the step in. So creating the dialog we just saw is the template. So then when I drag the step onto the canvas, it becomes the instance of the step. And this allows me to populate the different inputs with actual values. So in this case, we're going to say the target name is going to be the username that we parsed from the subject. Note that I have access to the outputs of all of the preceding steps. So I can grab any one of the outputs from any of the preceding steps and use them to map my values. I don't really know what people's first name is, so I'm just making them all CatFacts. I'll give them a last name just so that they're unique. This is how I actually target people. So it's 7 a.m. Pacific time every morning. If you sign up for this, then you will get an email because your CatFact value in my xMatters instance is set to true. Some other details that we don't really care about. The endpoint, this is where the authentication. So you notice in that code, nothing in there actually had my username and password, which is really nice. Keeping passwords in plain text is, generally not a good idea. So this allows us to encrypt the credentials into an endpoint. Well, in this case, the xMatters endpoint, but if a different endpoint, then we would set the authentication pieces in here. This is one you can see for catfact.ninja. This is the API service that I'm using to retrieve the API call. So pretty cool. Really helpful if you ever need, random catfacts. So, and then once we do that, then we send off the welcome email. Note that I always have, a nice way to remove the original. The original CatFacts was a very complicated removal process that involves randomly generated characters that may or may not be accepted. But in these days of getting, spam concerns, let's just say, I do offer a remove response. And so all this does is actually just deletes the person in my xMatters instance. No reason to keep them along. We can see so this is my users list. So I've set the CatFacts, to true here. Should show my new user. Refresh. Yeah, cool. Sorry, you're trying to hide the usernames. But anyways, we got a couple of my new user there. Yeah, so that's the new user welcome workflow. Then every morning, what happens is an event wakes up, a scheduled event wakes up and fires a CatFacts generator, which actually doesn't do a whole lot except generate a CatFact. So once the event gets created, then we retrieve a new CatFact and a new image. This is the other API call I was using, and then generate the CatFact. So yeah, so pretty straightforward. I think the real key takeaways. We're using the email trigger. Hi. We're using the email trigger here. I think it's a pretty uncommon thing to use an email trigger because a lot of times we want to use an API or an HTTP trigger to parse the values from whatever the third-party system. They're a lot easier to deal with, because they are machine. Nope. Nope. Sorry about that. So we can parse so it's easier to parse a JSON object than it is to parse a human readable email, especially if you need to troll through the HTML. Okay, that's pretty much all of it. I don't think there was anything else I wanted to show. Yes, as noted, please submit questions to the Q&A box. And if you want this workflow, maybe in your own environment, so you can sign up your own friends, then that's fine. We'll get it posted someplace and the link sent out. We should put it on GitHub. The live cat's name, this is Bonnie. She's watching the squirrels right now. See? The badger, actually it's a badger. She really has issues with the badger, apparently. Cool. Well, let me see. I need to show, what is this? User welcome. So if you want to get your own CatFacts, I do have a few more licenses. Just send an email to whatever@catfacts.mandalore.xmatters.com, and you can sign up here. I will even throw this in the list. If you want to get your daily CatFacts, send it over there. That's all you're going to get. I don't use it for anything else. Don't worry. I'm not going to spam you or anything. And that's it.